my name is Mary. I'm a media artist on the side, and as I was sharing with Trina, I'm also have a new house with a garden, so I'm venturing into the brand new world of planting gardens and native plants and things. And for Pingwa, I've been working with Pingwa and traveling with Pingwa. I've been very, very lucky to go to Nunavut and Nunavik and work in communities to teach and share digital skills. So I'm really excited to be here and to work with you, and so glad you're here. Thank you. I'll pass it over to Charisse, and then maybe Charisse can call out names and everyone can take turns introducing. If you can't introduce yourself verbally for whatever reason or don't want to, please do it in the chat. Thanks. Great.
Thank you, Mary. Thank you, Trina. Hi, everyone. My name is Charisse. I'm pleased to meet all of you. So basically, I have a background in adult education and digital technology. As a youth, I always loved gadgets and all those cool, fun stuff. And then I also worked with YTV, Satellite Magazine, City TV. I have an 8-year-old son. He loves to code. He's into 3D model printing. And I'm just happy to be here and to meet all of you. So I'm going to choose somebody now. Feel free. I hope you feel comfortable to share. As Mary said, you don't have to have your camera on, but we'd love to see your beautiful smile. How about Lexi Burry? I have a cousin named Lexi, Alexis, so that's why I chose you today for the sharing circle. Well, I don't see your mic on though, Lexi. See in the chat there. Are you there, Lexi? Okay, maybe I'll choose somebody with, we can always come back around if you feel comfortable. Somebody who has their mic on. Alyssa Hillier, did I pronounce that correctly? Alyssa? Are you there?
So again, if you can't or don't want to introduce yourselves out loud here, please put it in the chat if you want to. And maybe, Charisse, do you think maybe we could just offer anybody who would like to could just start?
I was going to suggest that. Okay. Whoever feels comfortable to just jump on in, just jump on in. You don't even have to turn on your camera, just to say a quick hello, you know, and what you're hoping to maybe get out of today.
Okay, well, that's okay. If you want to introduce yourself in the chat, that's great. And welcome. We're so excited that you're here. And what we're going to do is we're going to dive right in. And just in case anyone missed it, you do want to have Canva open. And so if you're working on a mobile device, you'll need a mobile app. And you'll need to create a free account. We're also going to be doing a quick concept sketch. So you'll want a pencil and some paper maybe to do your quick concept sketch. And those are the materials you need, and you also, intellectually, you need to think about a topic that you're really passionate about, that you want to share information about. So that's what you're going to need. And we're going to go over, let's see, I just want to make sure that I tell you that if you have a question, it's really important that we get to that question right away. So please feel free to unmute and ask that question as soon as you have it if you want to. Doesn't matter if you interrupt. We want to know what your questions are. And don't feel hesitant, because if you have that question, I'm sure someone else does as well, either in the group here or maybe someone who would be watching the recording later. And so please make sure that you do that. We're going to be doing an infographic today, and we chose that because that's a kind of design you can create with graphic design that really uses a lot of the different features. So we thought it was A, kind of interesting, and B, kind of the best way to learn your way around Canva, because you incorporate a lot of elements. As you're moving forward, I want you to think about whether the one that you submit to the contest afterwards, if you're going to be printing, if that would be ideally printed out. So would it be a hard copy design, or would it be a digital design? because again, your design choices that you make all the way through are a little bit different for digital sharing versus print sharing. And we've heard that you can already heard from Trina that you can submit whatever you make by, I think it was August 5th, to win even more points. And that sounds really, really cool. I'd love to win one of those lovely prizes. It sounds like a great prize. So hope that you can do that. And today you might finish something that you want to actually submit today. You might also want to kind of practice and learn and then create that in your own time afterwards. And any which way around is fine. And I think that's and Charisse, I think, is getting ready to show a slide deck that we'll begin with. Just to give you an overview, we're going to do a bit of a slideshow about graphic design in general. And then we're going to do, start the activities. We're going to do like a quick concept sketch, and this is very hands-on. It's not just watch us, we want you to be doing as well. So it will be a quick concept sketch, and then we'll be working together to create something in Canva, sort of as a prototype. And then we'll create again in Canva using different of the elements, different elements. And then if you want to share what you've done at the end, that would be great. And if not, that's okay too, but we're looking forward to see what you submit. Hopefully you'll share it with us as well. All right, Charisse is all set. So
there is a question there. Sydney is asking, does it have to be a problem-related topic?
Oh, excellent. Thank you, Trina. It does not have to be a problem-related topic. It can just be, but it can be anything that you want to share information about, and that may not be a problem. It might just be something that you're celebrating or want to share about. So, or teach about. Yeah, excellent. Yeah, hobby or passion would be fabulous. Excellent. Yeah, thank you. Great ideas. All righty. Okay, I'll pass it over to Charisse.
Thank you so much. And we appreciate that question. Is like, the more questions, the better. The great thing that I actually love about Canva is, I don't know if anybody here has been in the situation. Sometimes you may be thinking, man, I wish I could create like a cool poster to get, something that I'm passionate about across. Or maybe you've been in a situation where you think, I want to create like a Christmas card or something to give a loved one, or for another holiday. Like, there are just so many different times when I've been in certain situations before, but I thought, like, I don't have in-depth, this was during high school, so I don't have in-depth graphic design. But the great thing about Canva, before taking any particular graphic design courses, is that it's very, very easy to use. It's very, very friendly to just the average person who may not have graphic design skills. So we're gonna look at the basics of graphic design as well as Canva. So a brief overview that we're going to talk about is, what is graphic design, and the creative process that actually takes place in order to create design projects. We're going to talk about some things such as layout and composition, which are specifically important to the field of graphic design, and it helps your image, or something that we called artifact, to be a lot more visually appealing. We're going to also speak about color and where we can get materials to utilize. Okay, so first off, what is graphic design? So graphic design is the art of using visual elements, typography, so text and fonts, and color to convey a message. It's about communicating, interpretation, and attraction. So when you think about maybe, driving and you might see a big billboard, I think about downtown Toronto. There are a lot of places where you can see big images, and the graphic designers, they spend a lot of time thinking about how they want things to look visually, what types of colors will attract people, and how to get their particular messages across. And there is a creative process that's also involved in graphic design. So the creative brief, it helps us understand the project between the client and the designer. So I'm not sure, maybe as a career, some of us may be interested in, going into the field of graphic design. I don't know if there's anybody that'd like to share if they're passionate about that in the chat. You can do it as a side project, or you can also, you know, get your resumes out there and apply to places where you can actually work as a graphic designer. So you have the option to do it freelance or to actually work with a company. But these things are important to know because it's the fundamentals, so the basics of what you would need to do in order to make sure that the process is done correctly. So when you understand this process, it sets out the objectives and the scope of the project. So what the client needs, as well as the time frame that they need it in. It's also going to identify something called the lifespan of the project and any constraints, meaning any issues that may come up. And I will show you that a little bit more in depth afterwards. You also want to get to know your client. So for example, if, you know, you have a client that says, can you design something for my business? You're going to want to ask them, you know, what sort of things do you like in terms of, do you have a slogan? Do you have a particular message that you'd like to get across? What colors maybe are related to your business? All of these things are very, very helpful. And when you're thinking about yourself, something that you're designing, you are the client. So that's kind of nice in the sense that for the infographic today, you can choose the colors. You can choose the message that you want to get across. And the beauty of, the best thing that I love about an infographic is that it is exactly what it says it is. It's information tied to a graphic. So you don't have to write like a big long essay to get your message across. There's very limited text along with nice bright visuals to just get it out there. You'll also get to learn about what colors do you use? Like, what do you feel like when you hear a brand, for example, like Coke? Some people think happiness and they think of that bright, flashy color of red. How do you feel when you hear the word Pepsi? Other people think about fun and cool. A long time ago, they used to have like a Pepsi commercial where they had glasses and a little image of a Coke, of a Pepsi can with sunglasses on it. So that's why some people would think about cool. I don't know if maybe you wanted to share of some instances or things that you can think about in terms of maybe commercials or posters or billboards that you've seen that come to mind. Feel free to share them in the chat. Also, you want to think about how you're going to compile your research. So how you're going to put it together and create drafts. And we're going to go over all of this. So we're going to explain the process of creating sketches. And like, I'm not Picasso. You don't have to be a fabulous artist, right? Anybody, like, you'll see some of the sketches that I've made before. And that's the beauty of Canva, is that even if you just have something that, you know, is just in your mind that you want to come to life, once you utilize Canva, it has everything in there already set for you to go. And that's a part of the process. So layout and composition are one of the most important things when you're thinking about graphic design, because they're important skills that every designer, and think of yourself, you're a designer, you want to be able to make sure that you have an understanding in these things. Nobody's expecting or expected to be, you know, the person who knows everything. But the important thing is that you know the tools and where to find them. And that's what Canva is great for. It also deals with placing your items in a specific pattern or relationship to one another. And we'll talk about that. Things such as the rule of thirds. So that way your presentation, your infographic, it will have a very nice visual look, which is something that we call aesthetically pleasing. So we're going to talk about design spaces, working in the page, the banner on the screen, and how we can accomplish those things. So here we have an example of the rule of thirds. So you can see here that this is just divided. It has several lines across, so horizontally and vertically. And if you think about a photograph, the beauty of it is that you have it set out so that way you can know as a designer how things can look balanced. You can get that nice visually pleasing or aesthetically pleasing image across to the audience. It's all about placement. And Mary, if you could also keep an eye on the chat for me, I'd really appreciate that.
Yeah, sorry, we're having little conversations over here in the chat.
No worries.
No
I just want to
problem.
make sure I don't miss any important questions. So
Yeah,
I'm going to
no,
keep going.
I'll let you know if there's any questions, but we're just
Thank
asking
you.
who's had some experience. So I'll share that when you're done there.
Awesome. And so here's another example, like rule of thirds. It doesn't always have to be in equal quadrants, is what we call, or equal portions, but it's just laying it out so that it has some sort of visually aesthetically pleasing, which means that to the person's eye, it looks like it follows some sort of a linear framework, which would mean that the lines that we showed you previously here, the vertical and the horizontal lines, it's just used as a guide so that way things can flow. So there are lots of principles of design, but the fundamental, or I should say the most important ones that you want to talk about so that you have an understanding of design space, you want to consider something called the 6 design principles when you're designing. So those are balance, alignment, proximity, contrast, repetition, and space. So balance is exactly how it sounds. It's just making sure that the things in your design space, so whether it's an infographic, a poster, a card, that it has some form of symmetry. Also alignment, which helps to create, it also helps to create balance as well. I'm going to show you images so that you can see visually exactly what we're speaking about when we're talking about these particular principles. And then proximity. Proximity has to do with how close images are to one another in the actual object that's being designed, which we would call an artifact. Contrast, it also helps you to learn about shading and things that work together to look pleasing to the eye. When you have contrast, everything shouldn't blend into one. It's going to pop where it's supposed to pop and be softer where it's supposed to be softer in terms of color. And then also repetition. Graphic designers think a lot about what particular visual elements they may want to repeat in their design to create something called rhythm. And then space. So the overall space that you're designing, you want to think about space between the objects inside of your artifact and just the overall design space. And here is an example of an infographic. So what I love about infographics are the fact that they are very, very, very capturing to the eye. Like I remember one time I went over to my eye doctor and they had something up about just the importance of taking care of your eyes and eyesight. And usually infographics, there are many different types, but basically they have 3 colors as the main background colors. That way it doesn't get too busy. And then you think about something that you're passionate about or that you'd like to get across to your audience. Some people it may be Indigenous rights, some people it may be nutrition. But the great thing is you don't have to create a whole long essay or, have a lot of text. You just come up with a few images that look really, really pleasing to you. And you deal with contrast, which is the different colors, alignment, repetition, proximity. So this is a way basically to get all of the things that I mentioned before about some of the design principles across. But remember, there are 6, but just in a nice, easier way. And that's what an infographic is. It's a lot easier when you look at it to receive, I think. So here are the design principles again. Layout, alignment, hierarchy has to also deal with like the leveling from the bottom upwards, proximity, so how close things are, balance, repetition, color, contrast, negative space. So the space that is inside here versus what's on the outside. That would be the negative space there. So we also want to think about color and hue and different things like saturation, how in depth we want to go, the tone, for brightness. All of these things help to make an image really pop for the audience. And so I'm just going to briefly talk about, so that way we can get designing a rough sketch, what materials, as Mary mentioned, for your infographic. We're just going to elaborate further. Some important things to know are intellectual property. So when you are designing an infographic, there's something called Creative Commons, which is a website. We're going to talk about this a bit more, where it's a database. Actually, there are pictures in there, so photographs of things that you can actually use and remix or put into your artifact, put into your object, and people have given permission to share these things so that they can be a part of other people's designs. Canva also has Canva, the free one, as well as the one where you have to pay. So they also have Canva for nonprofit. But I mean, just for standard basic things, as we get into it, you'll see what the free one it affords you, or what it allows you to do. So right now, what I'm just going to show you briefly, and as I mentioned before, was about the sketches. So if everyone could get their pens and papers ready. In the meantime, I don't know if there was, you mentioned, Mary, there was something that you might want the girl in the chat. Was there something in the chat that, no?
Oh, sorry, thanks. I was just going to let you know that some people have had some experience with Canva and some people haven't yet. And we've also had people mentioning Procreate, which is cool.
Nice.
Yeah, so this is great. I think everyone's going to really enjoy this. And as we move on, those who have had experience with Canva, I welcome you to, or encourage you to share anything that you've learned or know about as we go along. That would be great, either unmute and share it or in the chat. And yeah, this is wonderful.
Awesome. Awesome. I love that. It's a great mix, it sounds like. So here is just it's a quick look at when designing for a client, or even for yourself, of some things that you can think about. You just do a rough draft, right? And so, as I said, I'm no Picasso. I'm not a famous artist, or drawing is not one of my strengths. But I wanted to create an artifact for asthma. My son has asthma, and I figured, you know what, it would be nice to get more awareness out about it. So this was the final product, and I made sure to put in my notes that the figure, it's not actually drawn to scale or created to scale. It's not going to be the actual size, because the beauty of it is that you can create it for the size that you need it to be. We'll talk about dimensions and pixels later on. But see, asthma and kids, and I just created a fictional organization here. ABC Asthma Inc. is an organization that promotes childhood asthma awareness in the classroom, and it explains some of the risks. So that way, if someone looks at it quickly, they understand. Dust mites are problematic for asthma. Exercise, it can also be a trigger. Illness, animal or pet dander, and some common symptoms in asthma include. So just now, as we're going to take out our pens and paper, just think about, you see here, I just put text. Picture 1, 2, 3, 4, text, 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 and just some of the colors that I wanted to use. I put too heavy on one side, too light on the other side. I redid it here, put dust mites, and I figured, okay, you know what, let's mix it up. Put pictures scatter it on each side, so that way you could have balance and symmetry, and then just put brief text. So that way it's not too much text on one side or too many pictures on one side. So we're going to give you a few minutes here to just draw something that you think, it can be related to any topic that you're interested in. Just take some time to just brainstorm a rough sketch.
And as you're sketching, sorry, go ahead, Sharice.
Oh, no, I'm just going to stop sharing my screen as well.
Okay. As you begin your sketch, first of all, think about, okay, what is your topic? And, Sydney's identified that Sydney might want to share about a hobby or something versus a problem. And that's a great idea. It's the same process for either a problem or just sharing about anything when you come to an infographic. You don't want any more than 5 key points. And as you looked at, if you'll recall, Sharice's, I think, what were there 4? I counted, but now I've forgotten already. I think there were 4 sort of key points. Yep. So you just want to think of 3 to 5 key points that you would like to share.
Yes.
And then you want to organize around those three to 5 points in an infographic. And generally speaking, infographics are sort of that long, sort of somewhat narrow and rectangular. Long wise, they don't have to be. You could do it any other way, but that's the template we're going to use today.